Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
The advent of the internet has evolved technology way beyond the comprehension of what many of us thought we knew or thought technology would be like. From the great space race all the way down to computers being the size of an entire room. The internet has created so many opportunities for so many people across the globe. It used to be more about what you can learn and the information you could share. But as time passed, it evolved. We started to get chat rooms and process sharing. Bring it into today, and I'd like to call it people using the internet for the digital experience. Yeah, sure, you can still research and search and share information. But now the internet has given us different ways to do it. I'd say the digital experience is more about the people you can meet and the places you can go. And all of this can be done without you even leaving your living room and never shaking that person's hand. It's an exciting thing to think that we are now in an age where that can happen. How's that happening now? That wave of social media apps. Applications that allow us to connect to one another in a way that we've never been able to connect before. Recorded in SFJ Studios, trying to sift through the world of digital experiences called social media. Elle Reconnected. Now what? Are you ready? Let's go. I know. I was really slack about posting in response to this, but I'm actually glad I didn't, and for reasons I'll tell you in a moment. Before I do that, though, I want to make sure I let you know, I'm going to put in the story notes of the episode where there's going to be like a line of demarcation. It's kind of like a two-part episode, so I'm going to discuss what it feels like to be reconnected, and then what reconnecting has looked like since that time, and why. So I'll put in there like the start time of the next segment of it. So that'll make the episode just a little bit longer than they normally are, but for a good reason. For those of you who hadn't had a chance to listen to the Elle Disconnected, the quick rundown is that I wanted to do a digital detox. I was actually going to do more than I ended up doing, but I ended up deciding to do social media. And my main reason for doing so was because during that time that I made the decision, I was moving, really getting into seriously considering starting this business that I've been toying around with for a little bit, and trying to build my brand and whatever that looks like. You know, you can have this vision, but if you don't follow through, what's it for? So that brings me up to where I am now. My initial time was to do it for 30 days. And believe it or not, I lost track. Because I know some people to be like, how did you make it 30 days? I lost track. I actually ended up doing it for 47 days. And on the maybe 43rd, 44th day, I kept thinking, well, I wonder if I can keep going. And when it came down and I got to day 47, there wasn't like an alarm that I set or a conversation that I had with a person that made me feel like I needed to get reconnected again. I wanted to do it as organically as I possibly could, and that's what I did. So on the 47th day, I thought, you know what? Go in, test it, see how you feel. And for the first, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 weeks after I decided to, quote, reconnect, I didn't even really notice a difference in how I was using social media. I was using it just like I had still been on the social media detox. Fast forward a couple months, I started to notice that I was getting a little more well-versed in using the big two that I use, which are Facebook and Instagram. I was never really an Instagram fan because I'm not the biggest picture taker. and I don't wear makeup, and I don't do tutorials. So I just wasn't like, you know. But you know, if you're going to build a brand, and if you are your own brand, you've got to get in there and get dirty. Try as you might, because I'm guilty of the same thing. If you really feel like you want to disconnect, and that's the way it's going to be, you can. But it's hard if you're trying to build an empire. I mean, and that's kind of the plan. It used to be, 15, 20 years ago, your community was what you could tangibly get to. But now with technology and social media, your community could, in theory, be the world, depending on how much you want to interact with it. And so I am now up to the point to where I can say, I'm glad that I did it, because it's more like a baseline. I know some people are like, you're probably putting too much thought into this, but no, because, and the reason I say that it's a baseline is what made me make the biggest decision was I could not believe that one night I had sat down and was intentionally looking for something that was for my betterment and fell down that slippery slope of watching video after video after video. 2 hours later, you have probably lost about at least 100 brain cells, and you did figure out how cats can dance in a suit. I mean, it doesn't add any value to your life and overall, but it was taking up time. It was taking up valuable time that I could have been developing myself and my brand more. With my renewed sense of purpose, I decided that it was time to get back in there and see what was going on with the world and social media. Now, I made a decision to focus more specifically on my interaction as far as being able to connect with people more purposefully, not just because of what I wanted to do with my business, but because I'm just to the point now where taking in some of the things that you see on on social media just don't serve me. As I age, I recognize that some of the outside world, whether it's makeup tutorials or conversations about politics, just booty shaking videos, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Whatever it is, some of those things just don't give me the feels. That doesn't mean that I'm supposed to be putting myself in this protective bubble that says that the rest of the world isn't happening. But, if, prime example, I don't eat beef, pork, or poultry. So I'm not going to take in those things just because everyone says that I should. But I do know that I need nutrients. My body needs to function. I need to be healthy. Well, it's the same thing with what you eat mentally, what you eat visually. And the visual food that I choose to eat is going to be leaner than it was before. So I'm taking a meal at the table of technology and social media that's fit and trim, so to speak. Now enter in what functioning in that world looks like. And that's me delving more into what social media is evolving into. Not even just for me, but for the world. Now, as a Facebook and Instagram user loosely, I don't use Snapchat. I just don't get it. Don't judge me, and I probably will have somebody say, well, how do you not understand Snapchat? I just don't. I tried. It just doesn't work for me. It doesn't. Twitter I've used, and I'm not the biggest Twitter fan. I do see where Twitter is very beneficial in the sense of, especially if people are looking for instant ways to get their message across in small bites, who don't really care so much about the videos. Of course I know Twitter has videos on there, but for people who are avid Twitter users, it's quick, it's instant. You have a different base of people on there than you would on Snapchat and Facebook. Of course, there's other things. There's other social media sites that people use and are well known. But, the biggest social media sites right now are YouTube and Facebook. And they've been the top contenders for years. But in preparation for doing this podcast, I wanted to learn a little more. Just because you think you know something and you've read a couple of articles doesn't necessarily mean you understand everything about something you use on a regular basis. If that were the case, people would drive a little better and we'd have less car accidents. I mean, just because you get in a car doesn't mean you know all the inner workings, and you might not be the best and well-versed at driving laws in your area. So then there you go. You make accidents. Well, you can make accidents with social media. And that's the reason why so many marketing companies, so many people have taken it and made their business to just pick through this area of technology because it's sort of like the wild, wild west of technology. Each time someone creates something, they create a new way to learn it and a new way to manipulate it. And when I say manipulate, I don't necessarily mean manipulate in a bad sense, but there is some badness to it depending on a person's purpose behind the manipulation. So right now I went to a few websites. I was going to throw all these stats, and then I said, well, I'm not really a stats person. Don't get it twisted. I am big on research and understanding things and making sure that I'm informed in my decisions. But when I'm talking about sharing what I know with other people, especially in the technology age where people can look up the information themselves, I'm not going to split hairs on percentages and statistical analysis and empirical data for people to lose what my message is. And because I'm a feeler and I give the feels, I'm going to give you the feels and not 1.278.3 percentages and 41 in 4 people do this. But I will give you a brief overview of what I learned. I went to a website called Influencer Marketing Hub, and how I got there was I Googled TikTok statistics, history about TikTok, history about Facebook, history about Instagram. And this particular website gives you an infographic, which I think is really cool because you get to see the major players. It doesn't give you exactly every player because things are forever changing, but it gives you the top several, and I'll read them really quick. Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitch, Snapchat, and TikTok. Okay, so if some of those do not sound familiar for you, they just won't. And that's based on the platform purpose. So some people may love Facebook, YouTube, and Snapchat, but they don't use LinkedIn. Whereas people who use LinkedIn are geared more toward business development, business marketing, as well as connecting with people, whether it's because you're trying to grow your business, connect with people in businesses, or look for a job. Okay, I use LinkedIn because I need another job. But I mean, it's also a good way to stay up on world events and how it affects marketplaces and the job workplaces. Now, the reason for going into this is I recognized after doing my detox that my feelings for certain social media platforms did kind of change. I used to be a very heavy Pinterest user. I'm not so much anymore. I enjoyed some of the art, quotes, ability to delve into DIYs. And it was more so for the content of learning and liking visual things, but it wasn't so much for connecting to people. I know some people connect on Pinterest, but I'm not one of those people. Snapchat, I'm just gonna say that I don't get it. I'll get comments and people will say things. I just don't get it. That doesn't mean that I'm not willing to learn. I just don't get it. Twitter, like I said, I've tried, I go back and forth, but it's just not really my type of hype. Someone introduced me to the concept when I started doing my podcast to go into Tumblr, and I did have a Tumblr account for my podcast. Tumblr's an interesting place. I still don't know how I feel about it per se. There is content that is sometimes obscure, and then just like any other social media platform, some of the content is really intentional and purposeful. So, I don't really have any followers on Tumblr, but I keep it because, I reach the occasional person. It allows me to post seamlessly between Facebook and Instagram. And so anything that's easy and it's free, as long as it's not harming me or anyone else, for me, I can't speak for what other people's content does to other people. But I mean, I'll use it because like I said, it's seamless. Instagram, I am learning to appreciate Instagram more. Now, even though I have videos on my website and I post videos to Instagram, I'm not a heavy video picture person. I'm not. I'm not the most photogenic, even though I've been told that I am. I'm just not. And so those videos that people post with tutorials, the long hair and the flashy makeup and cars and things, some of those I watch because I want to understand the content that other people are watching, but those don't really move me. I don't wear makeup, and as a matter of fact, I was getting ready to make a video a few weeks ago on one of my social media platforms that I do use frequently. And I wanted to put on some lipstick to kind of prove a point with something I was going to do. And I was like, well, maybe I'll put on some makeup. And I go and I look and I have no makeup. None. I can't find any of my lip glosses. I have one I forgot. I don't even know the name of it. I don't know the brand, but it's like a red pigment lip gloss. And I called myself putting that on, and that was it. And then I took it off because I look like a clown. And I'm not downing myself. I just red lipstick on my skin at that moment in the terrible lighting made me look like a clown. So I said, yeah, I'm not doing that. But now I'm going to delve into the new thing that is, I'm not going to call it new for everyone, but it's a newer platform that has just busted out on the scene with the billions of people. I think they said there's like, let me look at this website real quick. I think this one website said there's 3.2 billion people on social media platforms right now. Well, the new kid on the block that is crossing generational gaps is TikTok. Now, why am I talking about TikTok specifically? Now, as you just heard, I'm not the biggest social media fan, and I've learned to use it for what I need to use it for. But once I heard about TikTok, I said, well, all right, let's try this thing out. And how it started was last year, my sister sent me a message. The two of us do this thing. Well, it's mostly her. When she would do it, she'd say, hey, I want you to try this app. And I go, I'm not trying this app. And then I would sign up for it. And she and I would send screenshots and videos back and forth about our experience. And then we get down to the point where we're like, well, this is whack. And we delete it. So when she mentioned the TikTok thing to me, I went on. She was like, sign up. We'll do it together. And I signed up, and within 20 minutes, I was like, this is not okay. I don't understand it. It's a waste of space on my phone, and I'm going to delete it. I promise you, I'm not kidding when I say 30 minutes maybe. So I deleted it, didn't think anything else about it. Then I'd say about maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I started to see people posting, and it had the little TikTok emblem in it. And some of the stuff was kind of funny, and other stuff, it was weird. I was like, what? And I just ignored it. So I had a chance to stay with a friend of mine's teenage daughter for several days while they were out of the country. And because I don't have any children around me, and I don't have a lot of my friends' children that are smaller don't live around me, my one friend, this is the closest to understanding pop culture from a teenage perspective that I'm ever going to get. So while I was there, we were talking, and I said, you know what, ding, my light bulb went off. Hey, tell me about this TikTok. And that's how it started. I could get into all the subtle nuances, but basically she showed me, sign up, and this is what you do. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, what is this? It just makes no sense to me. And she was like, well, this is what you do. And so she started talking about some of the other things in it, and I thought, well, you know what? I'm here for the weekend. I had just had my second round of injections for my back injury that I had. I'm laid up. I couldn't drive anywhere. I'm barely moving. I've got ice on my butt and my back, and I'm posted up on this couch with pillows behind me. And I was like, well, what else do you have to do? Just play around with this TikTok. So I made my first video and had no idea what it was. And, was like, and left it alone because I didn't know what I was looking for. And I went back in probably about an hour later and had all these hundreds of views. And she comes back downstairs and says, I said, hey, let me ask you something. What does this mean? And she goes, that's like 500 and some views. And I was like, okay. She was like, how did you get that many so quick? So I started asking her about her experience, and she says she doesn't like to participate in making the content. She just likes to watch. And apparently that was a thing. So fast forward to now. I now have a TikTok page that is very active, and I'm going to break down some of the reasons why it is for me. And this is what I've learned in the 2 months that I've been on there. And ever the nerd about understanding the human condition, I'm going to break down just a few steps and a few things about TikTok that I recognize. Now, there is a huge learning curve. And if you're not willing to learn to use the content as a content creator, then you still have a learning curve on learning what it is to be someone who just watches the content. it runs heavily on hashtags and trending. And so hashtags can be put in the description of the video, just like you would on Instagram or something on Twitter or Facebook. But as you well know, something like Facebook, hashtags don't really matter because you can't link to them. You can look and learn them so you can take them to another social media platform to understand them. But even within TikTok, you can't click on the hashtag in its like in the description of a post, but you can go through and search the hashtag in a way that allows you to link directly to a video based on based on pictures. Whereas, other platforms may not do that. You also get an opportunity as a content creator once you reached 1,000 views. Now they're changing TikTok quite a bit, so that might not be 1,000 anymore, but the last I checked, in order for you to check content, you have to in order for you to post lives, you have to have at least 1,000 followers. Now, lives are an interesting thing because, you can use lives on other social media platforms, but here's a little twist with the lives on TikTok. When you're in a live, you have the ability to get gifts. Gifts that are given by your viewers turn into diamonds, and diamonds turn into US dollars. Now, it doesn't matter what country you're in the world, your diamonds that translate to money will always be US dollars. I'm not going to get into the specifics of why, but I can understand it would probably have to do with banking laws, maritime laws, and making sure that whatever the most universal form of money is that people can use, and that happens to be the American dollar. Lives are interesting, and for a person who is having a difficult time creating content, you are definitely going to have a difficult time doing a live. Because you can't even get there till you get 1,000 followers. But then being like in this fishbowl is an interesting thing. I did my first live by accident. I didn't even know it was an option. And I thought, what is this little button flashing? And I clicked on live and people showed up. And I was like, why are you here? That's kind of what I thought, because I don't do lives on other platforms. So when I tried it, TikTok has been like this huge experiment for me, so to speak. And when people showed up, I thought, well, maybe this is a thing.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
And that's how people make money. I'm still trying to understand that. I took some tutorials on how the gifts turn to diamonds and diamonds turn to money. But recently I have amassed enough to get money. Oddly enough. Now, you don't get paid until you reach, I think, in $100 increments, or you have to get up to $100. And so I don't have nearly that much. But for someone who's trying to understand how this works, you're going to start to recognize that there is this desire to figure this thing out. I can tell you that happened within the first 4 or 5 days of me being on there. And then when you start to add the layer of getting money, oh yeah, people are going to really try to figure this thing out. The biggest thing that I will say in the hashtag part of the app is hashtags are very important, but they also change and they're fleeting. Because you have to stay up on the content in order to stay relevant, you can post a video with hashtags that seemed cool 2 days ago or 3 weeks ago. And because of the way the platform is structured with algorithms, you may not be able to be seen by so many people. Now, I mentioned the algorithm because I actually watched a video on TikTok just yesterday about someone breaking down the algorithm and trying to get people to understand it. Without being technical and not being a person that is about the stats, just from what I've understand, here is a quick rundown on how the algorithm, people believe the algorithm works. TikTok has buckets for content. Those buckets are a way to siphon off content. The content is then sent to people or a computer that reviews the content, and then it divvies it up on where it goes. Let's just leave it like that because you can get into more of it. So the quest for all people who are content providers on TikTok is to get in the right bucket so you can get the most views. And the most views get you the most plays and vice versa. And then that gets you to more people on more devices. The catch is that you won't 100% know if your content is where you want it to be until you start getting views and likes. And then your hashtags have something to do with that. Now, I will say, now that I've been in it and I have a certain number of followers, I don't really mess with hashtags anymore because it's like a rat race. But I'm also not on there to get 1 million followers. Now, if I were to get up to 1 million followers, that would be really cool. More because I know I have something to say and I like to share the information that I have. But as far as it being a popularity contest, that's not what I'm on there for. I've made a point to hashtag my brand as the Silver Fox Journal and the Silver Fox Journal podcast, and as Elle the Storyteller. I do that because at some point, if somebody does like my content and they're like, hey, have you seen this Silver Fox? Yeah, I'm a hashtagger. And so that will bring up everything that I make. So that's a good way to build. But, if you're not at that level yet and people aren't really specifically looking for you, that particular hashtag is not going to work. Now, I will say, in the brief time that I've been on there, when I first started and I would start watching videos and I would hear how people felt like, they're like, oh, this is a community, this is my extended family. And the person that isn't, I was just like, how is that? How is this your family? These people, this person is 7,000 miles away. This person is 20 years younger than you are. This person, how are these people your family? And 2 months in, I could see how people look at it as family and a community. This is a community. It's a global community that is housed on an application on a phone or a device on a computer, and it lets you reach out to everyone. Anyone who's willing to listen. Now, I have met some really great people with awesome things to say, poignant, sometimes slightly obscure, but you start to understand other people. And I will say it has helped me kind of bridge that generation gap as well. Because I'm a person who doesn't have kids and I'm not around a lot of children, some of the things that I've seen on other social media platforms that just don't make sense to me, I was just like, what? This is weird. Now I get it. Well, I get where it's coming from. I may not get all of it, but I get where it's coming from. With that being said, I mentioned generations. Let's talk about generations on TikTok. Much like society, the generational content on TikTok is also a way that divvies up what people see and what they view. Now, you heard me mention generations. Well, just like within society, there's the generation gap. And for those people who are not familiar with the generation gap, I'll let you do your own research. But the top ones that are found on TikTok and a lot of social media, if you look at some of the statistics from other websites and research like the Pew Institute and Harvard, and you've got baby boomers, Gen X, millennial, Gen Zs, and then there's certain nuances in between there, like Zennials. Unless you've been living under a rock, one of the things that you have maybe heard in the news, whether it's from just other social media content or from people making a comment called "Okay Boomer." Now, boomer is referring to baby boomers. But okay boomer is intended to be a derogatory term where I will tell you, based on what I've learned, I call it GenBeef, #GenBeef. And there are quite a few articles about where it came from, but I ran across this article on the internet, on Vox.com, by a woman named Christina. And I don't want to tear her name up, is ANIMASH AUN Amnishon, I want to say. And if I said it incorrectly, forgive me. And she said it best so far that I've seen. And basically, and I'm going to quote her, she says, okay boomer implies that the older generation misunderstands millennials and Gen Z culture and politics so fundamentally that the years of condescension and misrepresentation have led to this pointedly terse rebuttal and rejection. So okay boomer is intended to be negative, and it's saying that, hey, you guys don't get me, and I'm going to disrespect you by saying these two words, regardless of the tone, regardless of how the situation. Someone could say okay boomer, or somebody could be like okay boomer, and it's just as cutting. I will say that, having been on that app, this is where the dark side starts. Not just the dark side because of the generational beef, but this is a big issue on TikTok. One of my first videos I posted that had something to do about like being irritated at gas stations because the receipt doesn't come out. I was amazed at how many okay boomers I got. Well, for those of you who know and have followed me, I'm 40. I am not a boomer. I am Gen X, not a boomer. But for people who are younger or who don't care and they just want to use it as a negative connotation, they will use okay boomer. So I had to learn very quickly that you have to filter out some of those words if you want your content to stay a certain way. And that's something else that I found is important. Filtering the people that leave comments and how you manage your comments. Some people don't even allow comments to be made, they block them. And so that would avoid the okay boomer back and forth Gen beef happening. So what you'll see in comment threads is Gen Z is the best, Gen X is the best, boomers suck, boomers are like, boomers are the best, Gen X is, man, Gen Zs are awful. I mean, so you have this thing, and the best way I can explain a lot of everything that's going on in our society right now, but a representation of it on a smaller level for the world as a whole, is Dr. Seuss's Sneetches. We are living in the world of the Sneetches. You have people saying that and if you're not familiar with the story, it's a group of these beings that live near a beach that are all seemingly the same based on their height and their size and their color and their shape. They're all, quote, the same race. But the Sneetches on the beach that have the stars are supposed to be the better Sneetches than the Sneetches that don't have the stars on their belly. And then someone comes into their community, and it's this professor who starts with this machine that says, hey, I can tell you, the Sneetches that don't have stars on their bellies, let me show you how I can get stars on your bellies, and you'll get the same benefit as the people who have stars on their belly. And they go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And by the end of the show, or by the end of the story, they find out that this professor has come in, taken their money, and put them in this world where they got stars on their forehead and backs and butts, and they're ultimately the same beings, and they should all get along. Well, that's kind of the same thing with the Gen beef. People are just constantly berating each other about being in different generations, and we're all the same beings. Now, we did grow up in different time frames and experience different things at points in history that shaped how our generation grew up. But ultimately, the last thing that I realize and remember about human beings is that we're all human beings. But it comes back down to the same thing as the Gen beef that you see on TikTok is the same as how we experience racism and sexism and all these isms that create phobias, and how people are arguing about whose political party is better or knows more, or science against religion. All these things that human beings have had to make up over the centuries in order to compartmentalize to understand life better have just fallen on. It just spilled onto this app where people of all ages congregate. I have followers. I have a follower that's like 13, all the way up to a lady that admitted she was in her mid 70s. I think she said she was like 73 or 75 or something. And so one of the few places where people have technology readily available at the tip of their hand, where they can actually interact with people that they would never interact with because of their locale. They're all together. So I could understand where the GenBeef would come from, but it just seems so catty and harsh. But that's not the only beef that's there. There's beef, of course. Racism I've seen on that app is very high. I could get it. Oh my gosh, this could be 4 hours long. But I'm saying this because a lot of what's happening in our society is spilling over. It's spilling over into this app, which spills back over into other social media platforms. Sexism, ableism, misogyny. Oh gosh, look, I'm not even gonna. Let me just put it this way: all the possible isms, ways to segregate and disenfranchise, be harmful, bully, are on this app. Now that I've talked about the bad, let me talk about the good. I have indirectly met some wonderful people on this app. There's some content on here that is nothing short of inspiring, whether it's people like Gary Vee, all the way up to psychologists and psychiatrists that want to talk to people about keeping their health well, their mental health well. Artists, some of the most talented artists I've ever seen, dancers, producers, avant-garde content producers, pastors, imams. I've seen some awesome people create awesome content. Now, the content is only 60 seconds long, but those 60 seconds can be pretty impactful to some people. I've actually been brought to tears by some of the things that I've seen, whether it's from sheer laughter or from just sheer emotion. And I know some people are probably listening to me like, are you kidding me? I thought the same thing until I got on TikTok. I mean, it's remarkable. Now, the thing about it is, some people would say, well, if you've got all these bad things on here and you're mentioning these good things and you're not saying that much about it, what's the purpose of the app? Why go on it? You could also say, what's the purpose of walking out of your house every day other than having to go to work and take your kids to school and go to religious ceremonies if that's what you do, or going to work out if that's what you do? Why do that? Well, TikTok is the world on an app in your device. I mean, that's what it is. There are ways on the app to protect yourself. They have a service center that gives you tips on safety. There are ways to report content that is inappropriate. There are ways to tutorials. They have ways to link to tutorials directly from the app. There's other stuff. There's other ways on there to understand TikTok. But I just really wanted to try to give everyone an overview of what's been impactful the most to me. The reason I've spent so much time on TikTok other than other social media is because most people are familiar with a lot of the other social media platforms. They've been in the news more frequently. There's been things that happen on those social media platforms that spill into media and conversation, whether it's in the workplace or all the way down to around the coffee table with your friends. That it's just more about it. But TikTok is untapped, heavily untapped, and it's becoming more tapped. I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy TikTok, considering I'm not the biggest in front of camera person. And I actually enjoy using it. And for every part of it that I don't enjoy, there's parts that I don't. But it's like you know how people say the old saying, you chew the meat and spit out the bone. You take what you can from it. So a lot of the people that I follow are pure content creators. I even have some people that I follow that aren't, but they're very interactive when it comes to lives. And those are the people that create conversation that help content. And some people would look at me and say, why are you following those people? And first of all, I'll be like, I'll follow who I want to follow just because I do what I want to do. But because I know that I am very intentional in my purpose, not only in my words, but the purpose and the actions that I take, I make sure that I follow people that I feel will add a richness to my life in my content and for those people that follow me. I do believe that we're in uncharted territory when it comes to certain levels of understanding social media. And as it evolves, our society evolves with it. And TikTok is on the precipice of that change because it has just come in and taken over millions of people's ideas of what social media and communicating with others around the globe looks like. Now, I know some people would probably say, well, why didn't you talk about the fact that it's a Chinese company that it started from, and the statistics from this, and how many women are on there, how many men. I'm not a statistics person in this platform. Now, in my personal life and other things that I choose to talk about, I will talk about stats. I understand stats. But a lot of people come to listen to my podcast. They just want to hear, hey, what's her perspective? And that's where it is. Now, mind you, I am not pushing TikTok or any other social media platform. That is not what I'm doing. I'm not advertising. No one's paying me for this. This is because, as being a lover of life and the feeler that I am, and sharing what I know, I wanted people to hear about it from, well, what does this do for me today without me reading statistics? Why would I listen to this app? Why would I pay attention to the content? And so that's why I did it. What does social media and Elle look like 6 months or 3 years from now? I don't know. But I will say taking that detox helped me channel my thought process on what that should look like. And I realize that as time continues to pass and my interaction with people on social media changes, that will change too. And I'm okay with that. I know some people are hard down connected to their app. Some people are just straight up Instagram heads. Some people are just, I call them twits. They just love Twitter and that's all they're going to use. Some people will never get off Facebook. Well, it's the same thing with how we live our lives. Some people will never walk into a Starbucks. Some people will never eat at a McDonald's. There are just certain things people aren't going to do because of the things that we believe and what makes us feel comfortable. I like to push the boundaries of comfort as much as I can at the times that I'm prepared to do so, because I recognize that without change, growth can never happen. I like to say, if you're a person that doesn't like to change and you're not interested in learning technology, I don't judge you. Never would. Don't do it. But I will say, if you are interested in learning more like I did, the worst that can happen is you wasted an hour or a day of your time. You can go back into your phone or your tablet. You can delete it and you can move on with your life. But I think it is very important to stay relevant in the surroundings around you, whether it's because you want to see what your kids are doing, or whether it's because you're trying to relate to a coworker or understand your mom or your dad better, or your kids. I think kind of checking into social media apps in general, not just TikTok, are a good way for you to stay connected. And then that will make some of the things that you see in media and on the news, articles online and magazines make a little more sense. Well, this was a little longer than I usually do, but for a good purpose. And as I do in every episode, you could have spent your time anywhere else with anyone else doing something else, and you chose to spend it with me, and I'm forever grateful. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Silver Fox Journal podcast. Check you next time.
Are you struggling to lose weight and keep it off? Tired of wasting time and money on starvation diets that lead to more frustration and stress? If there was a weight loss solution that could actually work for you, would you try it? Then head to Golo.com.
I'm Steve. I lost 138 pounds in 9 months on Golo.
I'm Amber. I've lost 128 pounds with Golo.
If you're ready to take back control of your life, head to Golo.com now and see how Golo can work for you. That's Golo.com.
My sleep is way better. My inflammation has gone way down. Golo saved my life. I was way overweight. That's what sent me down the path. I wanted to make sure and live for my kid.
I have literally tried everything. I was on the verge of getting gastric bypass surgery, and I saw the Golo commercial, and it was the last thing I tried because it worked.
Join over 2 million people who found a better way to lose weight with Golo. Your healthier and happier life begins at Golo.com. That's Golo.com. Again, Golo.com.